Hello again, I'm Maria Edelson, and I want to welcome you back to Starbucks JBP online video series, Module 3. Let me remind you of the learning objectives for this series. They are: be able to explain what joint business planning is and how it differs from annual business planning. Know and be able to use the process with one of your customers. And 3, if appropriate, be able to start or engage in the joint business planning process with your customer. This series will ensure you have the knowledge, you have practiced the skills, you have the ability to engage internally within Starbucks to gain agreement, and finally, you have the ability to engage externally with your customer to get started. You have already completed the first 2 modules of this 3-module series. Congratulations! The first video you completed included the definition of joint business planning, how it differs from other kinds of business planning you might be doing today, an introduction to the 5 steps, and you completed step 1, understanding your customer. In the second video, we focused on step 2, aligning internally, and we concentrated on value elements, building initiatives, and aligning internally. In this third and last video, we'll conclude by focusing on the final 3 steps: align top to top, engage the account, and then finally deliver and measure. So let's get started with Module 3. What can you expect to learn in this last module? After you complete this module, we believe you will ensure a successful top-to-top, know how to have a successful mirror team, know how to ensure a successful kickoff meeting, and understand the criteria for success, and build metrics and scorecards. Step 3 is align top-to-top. This step is all about enabling the senior leaders from your customer and Starbucks to agree they are both willing and able to engage in joint business planning. This step answers the question, how do we orchestrate a senior leader meeting to align on a common vision for JBP? Who do we involve? The big question you and your team need to answer is, who is our top at Starbucks? And who should they be meeting with as the top at the customer? The answer to this question is, it depends. You might ask, depends on what? So, what does it depend on? The scope, the depth, the breadth of your initiatives, and how big your mutual goals are. You may remember this slide from Module 2, where we used it to help you align on necessary stakeholders based on the nature of your initiatives. Now we'll use this to help you think about who should be involved at the customer and who should be involved at Starbucks. As you know from Module 2, the best JBPs include big strategic initiatives. If your initiatives involve big strategic concepts and ideas and will impact your customer at the highest level, then you need a very senior executive who has responsibility, authority, and decision-making over many functions and multiple metrics. If your initiative is more focused on process changes, workflow adjustments, or involves choices at the category or department level, you probably shouldn't be talking to a C-level executive. And of course, if your initiative focuses on display, merchandising, shelf, or new items, you probably should be talking to someone who executes at the operational level. And this might not be a big enough idea for a JBP. So, if you haven't done so already, this is a good time to step back and ask, do I have a really big idea? Are my initiatives really strategic? If so, you need to go up and engage the most senior people at the customer and the most senior people at Starbucks. Another quick story here. We did joint business planning work with a client outside the CPG industry. This client's biggest customer is General Motors, and we did JBP work with their GM team. This customer team created 3 very strategic, long-term, game-changing initiatives. Their choice for the top-to-top meeting was their company's CEO and Mary Barra, the CEO of GM. Now, obviously, Mary Barra is not too easy to see. In fact, at the time we were doing this work, Mary Barra was the CEO for about a year and was very busy testifying in front of the U.S. Congress about the millions of GM recalls underway. But, as I say often, it's easier to get the initial meeting than it is to get the follow-up meeting. This top-to-top conversation needs to demonstrate you understand their business and want to create a mutually beneficial partnership where both of you create something you couldn't accomplish alone. In the case of our client, they got that initial meeting. And thanks to great preparation, those 2 CEOs had a great conversation, and the rest is history. It changed the relationship with General Motors. I'm aware your CEO, Howard Schultz, has engaged with some of Starbucks' most strategic CPG channel development customers. Now, I'm certainly not recommending that every customer team ask Howard to participate. But what I am recommending is this. First, you and your team be intellectually honest about how strategic and how important your initiatives are. Are they really big, or are they just medium size, or are they typical, tactical, transactional ideas? Then be sure you enroll the appropriate executive. If they're really big ideas, go to the top, at both the customer and at Starbucks. As you'll see on the slide, we recognize that there are different possibilities for appropriately matching the senior executive from your customer with the right executive at Starbucks. You and your team need to think through this very carefully. If you use one of your most senior people with a perceived senior person at the customer who does not have the required authority and decision-making responsibility, potentially your JBP is doomed to failure. Once you've identified the right senior leaders, there's one other important consideration, and most salespeople are really uncomfortable with this. Our experience is the best top-to-tops with these 2 senior leaders is when they are alone. This gives them a chance to talk person to person, honestly and openly. Ideally, they can align on the fact that the JBP will be a win-win for both of them, that they are both willing to devote resources, people, and money. They can talk about what they're willing to give to sponsoring and to ensuring the success of this JBP. They can do this best when they talk to one another peer-to-peer. Finally, and very importantly, I need to say, please remember, this is not a sales call. It is a business conversation between 2 very senior executives. Please, no selling. This is important because the best JBPs are really not sold to the customer. The customer wants to engage, is willing to engage, and doesn't need to be sold. They might need an explanation of what a JBP is and how it works, what some of the benefits might be. We often tell the story of the first joint business plan of P&G. It was with Walmart, and honestly, it was not initiated by P&G. It was initiated by Sam Walton. It came about because Mr. Sam believed there was a better, easier, and more efficient and cost-effective way to do business, and he wanted to try it with one of his leading manufacturers. By way of background, this started due to a particularly difficult misunderstanding. Procter & Gamble was awarded Vendor of the Year by Walmart. Truly an honor. And then P&G declined the invitation to attend the ceremony. And therein lies the misunderstanding. Need I say more? Ultimately, Mr. Sam and Procter & Gamble's global chief customer officer, they met. They met on a fishing trip, believe it or not, in a canoe. I can't make this stuff up. And the outcome was an agreement that both parties would establish a team that would work jointly to figure out how to work better together. And that's how joint business planning was born. Today, we know those teams as mirror teams. Often, it's this kind of a conversation between two senior executives looking to do things differently, looking to engage each other differently, that creates the agreement to move forward. What's the objective or the outcome of a successful top-to-top? Both parties agree to engage willingly. The senior executive identify a leader from each organization, and they agree to establish what we just referred to as a mirror team to begin investigating the possibilities. And finally, they set a date, usually to agree, to meet again, to review the work of the mirror team and say, yes, we will, and hopefully not, no, we won't, but yes, we will. Let's proceed. So now that we have these mirror teams established from the top to top, what is a mirror team? A mirror team has two sets of participants, one from the customer and ideally one from Starbucks. These mirror teams are multifunctional and they have representatives from more than just sales. Remember from Module 1, JBP is an enterprise-wide event. And so what's the work of the team? Their job is to identify mutually beneficial key initiatives and align on a scorecard. Now remember in Module 2, you've already done some legwork on key initiatives. The work of the mirror team is now to make that effort joint, to get the customer engaged and aligned on initiatives that will benefit both companies. Secondly, the mirror team needs to prepare for a successful follow-up top-to-top. And finally, they'll ultimately have to prepare for a kickoff meeting where both companies will come together to start the work. So if that's the work of the mirror team, what's the work of the mirror team leader? Identifying the right person from the customer and the right person from Starbucks to be the mirror team leaders is critically important. They don't need to do the work. They need to lead and manage the work and the team. The most successful mirror team leaders have access to their senior executives and influence with them. They're also willing to engage and lead. And finally, it's someone that the balance of the team from both sides genuinely respects. Okay, now you have a pretty clear understanding of what the initial top-to-top is and how it works and why it's so important. We'll talk about homework for Step 3 after we finish this module. So let's move on to Step 4, engage the account. Step 4 is when you and your team begin to work with the account, specifically the mirror team, to jointly create and align on initiatives. This step answers the question, how can we help the account to help us lead this initiative? There's really 3 elements of work in this step. First is aligning on the initiatives. This is critical. The work can't proceed until this is complete. Then, using the aligned initiatives, you can prepare for and orchestrate the second top-to-top. And finally, once the senior executives agree to the mirror team's suggested initiatives, then you'll prepare for that kickoff meeting to start the work. So the first element is to agree on the key initiatives and align scorecard. Remember back in Step 2, You and your team did a lot of work to create potential initiatives and get internal alignment within Starbucks to these initiatives at your customer. Now is the time when you share this with the customer. Remember, it's so much easier for the customer to react to suggestions rather than to start with a white sheet of paper. Now your customer may come to you with a list of his or her initiatives. Wow, this is awesome. This is a signal that they're thinking about JBP and they're interested in creating powerful initiatives for both of you. This is a great sign. But if they don't come with a list, that's okay too. Then the work that you did in step 2 becomes really important and valuable to them and valuable to the success of the JBP. You may remember my story in Module 2 about my procurement manager suggesting an initiative around energy purchasing with the Northeast grocer. That initiative was born in a Mirror team meeting. With that specific customer, remember I had said we had a very expansive Mirror team. It included procurement and other functional representatives. It was a very extended team. It had HR, public relations, market research, legal, finance, labor relations, marketing, transportation, and there were more. There was another initiative that came from that Mirror team. It was when both HR organizations collaborated on a training program for in-store grocery personnel, and they leveraged P&G's global training capabilities. The next element for the Mirror team is to prepare and orchestrate a successful second top-to-top. If you prepared your initiative and your scorecard, you'll need to think about how to position and present these to both senior leaders so that you get their agreement to proceed. Remember, they commissioned the Mirror team and the 2 leaders to go away and figure this out and then come back and report. This is the meeting when the team reports back. And they make the decision. Is this JBP effort worth it? What is the required effort I need to invest, people and money? What are the initiatives that the Mirror team is recommending? What will these initiatives deliver for my company? Our experience is the best follow-up meetings with the 2 tops from the customer and Starbucks is when the 2 Mirror team leaders representing the entire Mirror team. Less is more. It's imperative to recognize the work of the entire team, but only with the 2 Mirror team leaders. The objective of this meeting is to get both tops to say, yes, let's proceed and move to the kickoff meeting. And that means preparing for the kickoff meeting. This is usually when both the customer and Starbucks come together to get started, specifically to review the initiatives, charter members from each company to work on the initiatives, and share the aligned scorecard, agreeing on a timeline and, importantly, milestones and checkpoints to keep the work on track. These are usually big meetings. In my experience, they're very upbeat and exciting. Everyone usually knows that they're part of something special happening between their 2 companies. Now, don't get me wrong. Not everyone is always thrilled. Sometimes there's someone in the meeting who's not too excited. But generally, if the preparation is thorough and the initiatives are truly mutually beneficial, these meetings are great. At the conclusion of the kickoff meeting, each key initiative team should be prepared to go off and begin the work, aware of the milestones and the checkpoints that they have to meet on the timeline. Again, we're going to talk about homework for step 4 at the end of this module. That brings us to the last and final step, step 5, which is delivering against the work and measuring success. Step 5 answers the question, How can we ensure great execution and capture all the results to measure the outcome for both parties? We've seen the most successful JBPs use an external aligned scorecard. This means both parties are using the same scorecard. So you really need to be thoughtful about what metrics you want to use. Some popular metrics include revenue, share of market, and any cost savings that you may accrue. One sensitive metric is often profit. Your team and the customer need to decide if you want to share this sensitive information with each other. This is an example of an aligned scorecard from another client. As you can see, they're tracking results monthly, and they're using both outcome and in-process measures. This scorecard, the outcome metrics are inventory day supply and volume as measured in statistical cases. These two metrics are important to both companies and will ensure the success of the JBP. The in-process metrics include in-stock, perfect orders, products sold on promotion, and a new item success. These in-process metrics are leading indicators that ensure the JBP is on track to deliver the outcomes. The Mira teams, and in fact everyone on the Starbucks customer team, can do a few things to ensure success. First, and importantly, is to raise issues and problems early. Make sure bad news travels fast, and when appropriate, engage the tops if they're required to break a logjam or a bottleneck. Second, plan to create an early win. Remember, success breeds success. Think about this as you plan the work. Third, celebrate success. When you have a success, be sure both parties know about the accomplishment and that it's recognized. It'll encourage everyone who's working so hard on the JBP to continue the effort because they'll see that the outcome is achievable, it's worthwhile, and it is celebrated. And finally, I know I don't need to say this, but I will. Be sure that your team delivers against every milestone for every checkpoint meeting. Do not miss deadlines. Don't miss deliverables. It can derail all of the work that you have done up until this point. Okay, so now for your homework. If you go to your workbook, there is homework for you to do for steps 3, steps 4, and steps 5. You'll want to complete that homework before you meet with your manager. Okay, that really brings us to the end of Module 3, where I hope you have learned that you can have a successful top-to-top, how you can create an effective Mira team so that they're empowered to deliver, how you can plan and orchestrate a successful kickoff meeting, and finally, that you can understand the criteria for success and the importance of an aligned scorecard. As we've done in the past 2 modules, I'm going to address some frequently asked questions that we get about steps 3, 4, and 5. One of our most popular questions is, why only the tops? Why only the senior people at the top-to-top meeting? Shouldn't there be other people in there with them? Our simple answer to this is no, there shouldn't be other people in there with them. The 2 senior executives meet one-on-one. This is a unique opportunity for them to get to know each other if they already don't know each other. They have a chance to talk candidly and openly about their business. Sometimes, when they're in a large group, senior leaders measure their words carefully. They can be reluctant to reveal in a large group what they may share alone with a peer. So let's give the senior leaders the unique opportunity to talk one-on-one, and perhaps some magic will come out of that meeting. Here's a question we get. Do we really need to have a second top-to-top before the kickoff meeting? The answer is absolutely yes, and here's why. That second top to top confirms the leaders support your initiatives, support the joint business planning, and are going to be supportive in the kickoff meeting. The last thing you want is to have your senior leaders show up at the kickoff meeting, see the initiative for the first time in front of the whole group, and heaven forbid you get a surprise. They don't support one of your initiatives, or they want to make a change or a revision. You want the second top-to-top meeting so that the leaders can review, discuss, agree before they get in front of their people. If they have suggestions or changes, better to make them at the second top-to-top and not in front of the entire team at the kickoff meeting. Sometimes people ask us, how important is that kickoff meeting? Can't we forego that meeting? It seems like an unnecessary meeting. And our answer is, it's really important. Here's why. This meeting sets the stage for all of the people who are actually going to do the work. It's an opportunity for them to personally experience the commitment of the two very senior executives who have commissioned this work, this joint business planning experience that both companies are going to engage in. It's very powerful for everyone to visibly see and hear confirmation that their most senior leaders support and champion this work. Why does the scorecard need to be joint? We get this question all the time. Why? Because we are so accustomed to keeping our scorecards to ourselves. We don't want to share our metrics and our results with the customer. However, what we have learned over the course of time is that totally transparent scorecards with carefully chosen metrics ensure success, because both parties can see and track their own progress, and they can see and track the progress of their partner. Remember, one of the criteria for engaging in joint business planning was that both parties agreed that they were both going to win, and that was okay. So to make this critical commitment work, both parties need to see each other's results and progress. Now remember, you have homework. Please go to your workbook and complete the homework on the pages titled Module 3, and do this before you meet with your manager. And that brings us to the end of this online video series. We hope that you've enjoyed it. More importantly, we hope that you've learned what a JBP is, why it can be so powerful, and the steps in the process to deliver a successful JBP. Here are the next steps as we finish up this series. First, be sure you complete all your homework for all 3 modules. Second, please discuss your findings, your thoughts, and your learnings with your manager. Then you and your manager can agree on a plan to move forward based on the work currently being done with your customer. So this ends our 3-series module on joint business planning. Again, we hope you've enjoyed participating in the entire series, and we hope that you've learned new skills and are ready to put them to use in your daily work. We recognize that not everyone participating in this series is working on a customer team engaged in joint business planning with their customer. However, there are elements of JBP that can help every one of you today, right now, with your customer. It's about how to engage and be prepared. It's about understanding your customer's business and knowing Starbucks' value elements and solutions. Even if you aren't doing a JBP, these are skills that will improve your results. Think about it. You've learned skills that you can use every day with or without a JBP customer. Thank you for participating, and good selling.